The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training facility as General Harrison stepped out of his armored vehicle. At 53, he had seen countless soldiers demonstrate their skills, but today felt different. His aide had mentioned something about a special marksman evaluation, though the details remained vague. The general adjusted his uniform and walked toward the shooting range, where a small crowd of officers had already gathered. What caught his attention immediately was the unusual silence. Typically, these demonstrations buzzed with conversation and commentary, but today the atmosphere felt charged with anticipation. Senior officers stood with their arms crossed, watching intently as a figure in the distance prepared equipment that looked far more sophisticated than standard military rifles. The person handling the weapon moved with precision that spoke of years of training. Even from a distance, the general could see the methodical way each piece of equipment was checked and rechecked. The rifle itself was impressive, a CheyTac intervention, known among military circles as one of the most accurate long-range systems ever developed. Few soldiers had the privilege of training with such advanced equipment, and fewer still could use it effectively. As General Harrison approached the observation area, Colonel Martinez briefed him on what they were about to witness. The marksman had requested this demonstration after completing an advanced sniper course with unprecedented scores. What made this request unusual was not just the weapon choice but the distance being attempted. Most military sharpshooters trained at ranges between 800 to 200 meters. Today's demonstration would push far beyond those limits. The target had been positioned at an extraordinary distance. Through his binoculars, the general could barely make out the small marker that served as the objective. The mathematics alone were staggering. At such range, factors like wind speed, humidity, temperature, and even the rotation of the Earth would affect the bullet's trajectory. Only the most skilled marksman could even attempt such a shot, let alone succeed. Weather conditions had been monitored throughout the morning. A gentle crosswind complicated the challenge, but the marksman seemed undeterred. Every movement suggested complete confidence in both the equipment and personal ability. The preparation process took nearly 20 minutes, with careful adjustments to the scope and calculations scribbled on a small notepad. The general found himself genuinely curious about this soldier's background. In his decades of military service, he had encountered exceptional individuals, but something about this demonstration felt different. The confidence displayed wasn't arrogance. It was the quiet assurance of someone who had tested their skills under real pressure and emerged successful. Other observers began sharing whispered conversations about previous long-range records and the technical specifications of the CheyTac system. The rifle was capable of accuracy that defied conventional understanding, but it required a marksman who could match its precision. Today would reveal whether this soldier possessed such rare ability. As final preparations continued, the general noticed how the marksman's breathing had settled into a controlled rhythm. Every aspect of body positioning had been carefully considered. The rifle rested on a specialized bipod system, and additional equipment suggested this was far more than a casual demonstration. This was a serious attempt at achieving something remarkable. The range safety officer announced that the demonstration would begin shortly. All observers were instructed to maintain complete silence during the actual shot attempt. Even the slightest distraction could affect concentration at such extreme distances. The general checked his watch and settled in to witness what promised to be an extraordinary display of marksmanship skill. In the distance, the marksman made final scope adjustments and assumed firing position. The moment of truth was approaching, and everyone present understood they might be witnessing something truly exceptional. The general raised his binoculars and focused on both the shooter and the distant target, knowing that success or failure would be determined by factors measured in millimeters and milliseconds. The silence across the range was absolute. General Harrison held his breath as he watched through his binoculars, focusing on the marksman who had now settled into perfect firing position. The CheyTac rifle looked almost small against the vast distance to the target, yet the confidence radiating from the shooter suggested this was merely another day at the office. Through the scope of his observation equipment, the general could see the target, a standard military silhouette that appeared no larger than a pinhead at this extreme range. The mathematical calculations required for such a shot were staggering. Gravity would pull the bullet down over 6 feet during its flight time. Wind would push it sideways. Even the Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation would influence the trajectory. The marksman's finger moved to the trigger with deliberate slowness. Years of training were evident in every micro-movement. The breathing had stopped entirely, a technique used by elite snipers to eliminate even the smallest body movement that could throw off aim. The general found himself unconsciously holding his own breath in sympathy. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the range. The sound seemed almost anticlimactic given the buildup, but experienced observers knew the real drama was yet to come. At this distance, the bullet would take several seconds to reach its target, an eternity for those watching and waiting. General Harrison kept his binoculars trained on the distant target while counting silently. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The bullet was traveling at over 3,000 feet per second, but physics still demanded its due. At 4 seconds, there should be impact if the calculations were correct. A small puff of dust appeared near the target area. The general adjusted his focus, trying to determine if it was a hit or a near miss. The range safety officer was already speaking into his radio, communicating with spotters positioned closer to the target. Their confirmation would be the official word on whether this extraordinary attempt had succeeded. The radio crackled to life with a calm voice. Target hit. Center mass. Confirmed impact. The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment before their full meaning registered. A collective exhale came from the gathered officers, followed by scattered murmurs of disbelief and admiration. General Harrison lowered his binoculars and looked directly at the marksman, who was already beginning to pack equipment with the same methodical precision shown during preparation. There was no celebration, no acknowledgement of the gathered crowd, just the quiet satisfaction of a professional who had executed a plan perfectly. Colonel Martinez approached the general with a tablet displaying the official measurements. The shot had covered 1,847 meters, over a mile, and struck within the high-scoring zone of the target. Wind conditions, humidity, and temperature had all been factored correctly. The margin for error at such distance was virtually non-existent, yet this soldier had made it look routine. What impressed the general most was the marksman's demeanor throughout the entire process. There had been no grandstanding, no attempts to build drama or impress the audience. This was clearly someone who approached extraordinary challenges as simply another task to be completed with professional competence. As equipment was being packed away, the general found himself wondering about this soldier's background. Such skill didn't develop overnight or through standard military training alone. This level of precision suggested combat experience, advanced specialized training, and natural talent refined through countless hours of practice under various conditions. The demonstration had lasted less than an hour, but its implications were significant. In an era where military conflicts often required precise action at extreme distances, having personnel capable of such accuracy was invaluable. The general made a mental note to review this soldier's file and consider how such exceptional skills might be best utilized. Other officers began approaching the marksman with questions about technique, equipment, and training methods. The responses were professional and informative, but the general detected a certain reserve, the caution of someone accustomed to keeping operational details confidential. This only heightened his curiosity about what real-world experiences had shaped such remarkable ability. Later that afternoon, General Harrison sat in his office reviewing personnel files. The demonstration had left him with questions that demanded answers. Through official channels, he had requested the complete military record of the marksman who had just delivered such an impressive performance. What he discovered would change his understanding of what he had witnessed. The file revealed a soldier with an unconventional path to exceptional skill. Multiple deployments to challenging theaters of operation, specialized training with elite units, and commendations for actions that remained largely classified. But it was the personal background information that caught the general's attention. Details that explained both the remarkable competence and the professional reserve he had observed. Service records showed deployment to some of the world's most dangerous regions, where precision shooting wasn't just a skill, but a survival necessity. Training reports indicated not just technical proficiency, but the mental resilience required to perform under extreme pressure. Psychological evaluations revealed someone who thrived in high stress, situations while maintaining absolute focus on mission objectives. What intrigued the general most was a pattern in the commendations and after-action reports. They consistently mentioned extraordinary calm under pressure, innovative problem-solving, and an almost supernatural ability to read environmental conditions. These weren't qualities that could be taught in standard military schools. They represented natural talent refined through experience that few soldiers ever encountered. The file also contained references to incidents that remained heavily redacted, but the general's security clearance allowed him to request additional details. What he learned painted a picture of operational successes that bordered on the legendary, missions accomplished under impossible conditions, targets engaged at distances that challenged the limits of both equipment and human capability. One particular operation report caught his attention immediately. The location was classified, but the tactical situation was clear enough. A critical target had been identified at an unprecedented distance, over 4,200 meters from the nearest feasible shooting position. Standard military doctrine would have required alternative approaches, but circumstances had demanded immediate action. Environmental conditions during that operation had been extraordinarily challenging. High altitude affected both bullet trajectory and human performance. Variable winds complicated calculations. The target window had been measured in seconds rather than minutes. Most military experts would have considered such a shot impossible under those conditions. The after-action report was written in typical military understatement, but the general could read between the lines. The mission's success had hinged entirely on one perfect shot, delivered under circumstances that would have challenged the world's best competitive marksman. The target had been neutralized. The operation completed successfully and lives had been saved as a direct result. General Harrison found himself rereading certain passages multiple times. The technical aspects of the shot were documented in precise detail: wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, altitude, and the complex calculations required to compensate for all variables simultaneously. The mathematics alone represented graduate-level physics applied under combat stress. What the report didn't capture was the human element, the mental strength required to maintain focus when lives depended on perfection, the confidence needed to attempt something that pushed beyond accepted limits, and the skill to execute flawlessly when failure wasn't an option. These qualities couldn't be measured or quantified, but they were clearly present in abundance. The general closed the file and leaned back in his chair, processing what he had learned. The morning's demonstration had been impressive enough, but now he understood it was merely a glimpse of capabilities proven under real-world conditions where the stakes couldn't have been higher. The calm confidence he had observed made perfect sense now. This was someone who had already succeeded, where others might not have even attempted to try. Looking out his office window, toward the range where the demonstration had taken place, General Harrison began to consider the broader implications of what he had discovered. In a military environment increasingly focused on precision and technological capability, having personnel who could exceed the theoretical limits of both was invaluable beyond measure. The next morning brought an unexpected request to General Harrison's office. The marksman from yesterday's demonstration had submitted a formal application for transfer to an advanced special operations unit. This wasn't unusual in itself. Exceptional soldiers often sought greater challenges, but the timing suggested deeper motivation than simple career advancement. General Harrison decided a personal interview was warranted. When the soldier entered his office, he was struck again by the same quiet confidence that had been evident during the shooting demonstration. There was no nervousness about meeting with such senior leadership, just professional respect and direct eye contact that spoke of someone accustomed to high-level briefings. The conversation began with standard questions about career goals and motivation for seeking transfer. The responses were articulate and thoughtful, revealing not just professional ambition but a genuine desire to serve where skills could have maximum impact. When the general steered the discussion toward recent operational experience, the answers became more carefully measured. It became clear that yesterday's demonstration had been requested for a specific purpose. Word of the soldier's exceptional abilities had reached certain classified circles, and opportunities were emerging that matched unique qualifications. The transfer request wasn't random career planning. It was positioning for assignments that required capabilities few others possessed. General Harrison found himself curious about the mental approach to extreme distance shooting. The technical aspects were impressive enough, but the psychological demands were equally challenging. At distances measured in kilometers, there was no immediate feedback, no way to adjust for minor errors, and no second chances if calculations proved incorrect. The response revealed a methodical mindset that treated each shot as a complete system, requiring perfect integration of multiple variables. Environmental conditions were studied obsessively. Equipment was maintained to tolerances that exceeded manufacturer specifications. Physical conditioning included breathing techniques and stress management that bordered on meditation practices, but it was the discussion of that legendary 4,200-meter shot that truly revealed the depth of capability. Without revealing classified operational details, the soldier described the mental process of accepting a challenge that pushed beyond accepted limits. The mathematics had been daunting, the environmental conditions harsh, and the pressure enormous, yet the approach had remained systematically analytical. What impressed the general most was the lack of bravado in discussing such an extraordinary achievement. This wasn't someone seeking recognition or attempting to build a reputation. Instead, it was a professional describing the successful completion of a difficult task, with the same tone used for routine training exercises. The conversation revealed layers of preparation that weren't visible during yesterday's demonstration. Thousands of hours of practice under varying conditions had built intuitive understanding of how equipment performed in different environments. Mental training included visualization techniques that allowed complete shot sequences to be rehearsed before ever touching the rifle. Physical conditioning extended beyond general fitness to include specific exercises that enhanced the stability and control required for precision shooting. Breathing patterns had been trained until they became automatic. Even heartbeat control had been practiced to minimize the microscopic movements that could affect accuracy at extreme distances. General Harrison began to understand that he wasn't simply interviewing an exceptional marksman, but someone who had transformed precision shooting into a complete discipline, requiring mastery of multiple domains simultaneously. The technical skills were impressive, but the mental approach was what elevated performance from merely excellent to truly extraordinary. As the interview concluded, the general found himself with a new appreciation for the complexities involved in extreme distance precision shooting. What appeared to outside observers as simply aiming and firing was actually the culmination of extensive preparation, advanced technical knowledge, and mental disciplines that few people ever developed. The transfer request was approved without hesitation. In military operations where precision could mean the difference between mission success and failure, having personnel capable of achieving the impossible was invaluable. The general made additional notes in the soldier's file, ensuring that such exceptional capabilities would be recognized and utilized appropriately in future assignments. 6 months after approving the transfer, General Harrison received an encrypted briefing document that made him understand the full significance of his decision. The Special Operations Unit had completed a mission that military historians would later study as a masterclass in precision and timing. The details were classified, but the general's security level allowed him access to the essential facts. The operation had taken place in mountainous terrain where conventional approaches were impossible. Intelligence had identified a high-value target who posed an immediate threat to civilian populations, but the individual's location made traditional military responses impractical. The window for action was measured in hours before the target would relocate to an area where intervention would become impossible. Geographic analysis revealed only one position from which the target could be engaged effectively. That position was located 4,200 meters from the target area, a distance that pushed beyond the theoretical limits of most sniper systems. Weather conditions were challenging, with variable winds and temperature fluctuations that complicated trajectory calculations significantly. The mission briefing had been clear about the stakes involved. Failure to neutralize the target would result in civilian casualties numbered in the hundreds. There would be no second chances, no opportunity for alternative approaches, and no margin for error. Success depended entirely on delivering one perfect shot under conditions that most military experts would consider impossible. Environmental factors on the day of the operation were documented in extraordinary detail. Wind speeds varied between different altitudes as the bullet traveled through multiple atmospheric layers. Temperature gradients affected air density and bullet velocity. The extreme altitude impacted both equipment performance and human physiology in ways that required careful consideration. The shot preparation took over 2 hours, with calculations that filled multiple pages of technical notes. Every environmental variable was measured repeatedly to ensure accuracy. Equipment was tested and retested to verify perfect operation. The margin for error at such distance was measured in millimeters, requiring precision that exceeded normal human capabilities. When the moment came, the shot was executed with the same calm professionalism that General Harrison had witnessed during the training demonstration. The bullet traveled for over 6 seconds before reaching its target, during which time the shooter had to maintain perfect position while trusting completely in calculations and equipment. The mission was successful. The target was neutralized with a single shot that military ballistics experts later confirmed as one of the longest successful engagements in military history. The civilian threat was eliminated, and subsequent operations proceeded without the complications that would have resulted from mission failure. What struck the general most about the after-action report was its understated tone. Despite achieving something that bordered on the impossible, the documentation read like a routine training exercise. There was no dramatic language, no attempts to emphasize the extraordinary nature of what had been accomplished, just professional reporting of mission parameters and successful completion. The broader implications became clear as General Harrison considered how such capabilities might be utilized in future operations. Modern military conflicts increasingly required precision action at extreme distances, where conventional approaches were impractical or impossible. Having personnel who could succeed under such circumstances provided options that didn't exist with standard military capabilities. Intelligence? Reports indicated that potential adversaries were developing their own extreme distance capabilities, recognizing the strategic advantages of being able to engage targets at unprecedented ranges. The military's ability to match and exceed such capabilities would be crucial in maintaining operational superiority in future conflicts. The general made several phone calls that afternoon, ensuring that lessons learned from this operation were incorporated into advanced training programs. He also recommended that personnel with similar potential be identified and developed, recognizing that such extraordinary skills couldn't be created quickly when they were needed. By evening, General Harrison found himself reflecting on the chain of events that had begun with a simple training demonstration. What had appeared to be an impressive but routine display of marksmanship had actually been a glimpse into capabilities that could change the nature of military operations when conventional approaches fell short of requirements. 1 year later, General Harrison stood before a classified briefing room filled with senior military leadership from multiple branches. The presentation he was about to deliver would reshape how the military approached extreme distance precision operations. The success of that record-breaking 4,200-meter shot had catalyzed developments that extended far beyond a single exceptional soldier. The briefing began with technical analysis of what made such extraordinary shots possible. Advanced rifle systems, precision ammunition, and environmental monitoring equipment had reached levels of sophistication that opened new possibilities for military operations. But technology alone wasn't sufficient. Human capabilities remained the crucial factor in achieving success under impossible conditions. Military training programs had been redesigned based on lessons learned from studying exceptional marksmen. The curriculum now included advanced mathematics, environmental science, and mental conditioning techniques that prepared soldiers for challenges that pushed beyond conventional limits. Selection criteria emphasized not just shooting ability, but the psychological resilience required for high-pressure situations. Intelligence analysis revealed that several potential adversaries were developing similar capabilities, recognizing the strategic advantages of extreme-distance precision engagement. Some had achieved documented successes at ranges approaching 3,000 meters, suggesting an arms race and precision capabilities that would define future military conflicts. The presentation included case studies of recent operations where extreme distance capabilities had provided decisive advantages. Targets that would have required complex multi-unit operations could now be addressed by small specialized teams operating from positions previously considered impossible. Mission success rates had improved while risk to personnel decreased significantly. General Harrison detailed the selection and training process for developing soldiers capable of such extraordinary performance. Physical requirements included not just marksmanship ability, but the mathematical aptitude needed for complex ballistic calculations and the mental discipline required for maintaining focus under extreme pressure. Only a small percentage of candidates possessed the combination of skills necessary for success. Training took place in environments that replicated the challenging conditions encountered during real operations. High-altitude facilities tested performance under reduced oxygen conditions. Variable weather training ensured soldiers could adapt to changing environmental factors. Stress inoculation prepared them for the psychological demands of high-stakes missions. The technology demonstration included the latest developments in rifle systems, ammunition, and supporting equipment. Advances in barrel manufacturing, scope technology, and environmental monitoring had pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible. Computer modeling now assisted with ballistic calculations, but human judgment remained essential for integrating multiple variables successfully. Questions from the audience revealed both excitement about new capabilities and concern about the challenges of developing sufficient numbers of qualified personnel. The training pipeline was necessarily selective and time-intensive, limiting how quickly such capabilities could be expanded. Each qualified operator represented months of specialized training and significant resource investment. Strategic implications were discussed at length. The ability to engage targets at unprecedented distances provided new options for military planners, but also created expectations that might not always be realistic. Success depended on favorable conditions, proper equipment, and personnel who possessed rare combinations of skills and experience. The briefing concluded with recommendations for expanding the program while maintaining the quality standards that ensured consistent success. General Harrison emphasized that extraordinary capabilities required extraordinary people, and the selection and training process couldn't be shortened without compromising effectiveness. As military leadership filed out of the briefing room, conversations continued about how these developments would influence future strategic planning. The demonstration that had begun with one soldier zeroing a CheyTac rifle had evolved into a complete reimagining of what was possible when human skill and advanced technology were combined. Effectively, General Harrison remained behind, reflecting on how a routine training observation had led to discoveries that would influence military doctrine for years to come. The quiet professional who had delivered that perfect demonstration shot had unknowingly triggered developments that extended far beyond individual achievement to reshape entire approaches to military operations requiring impossible precision under extraordinary circumstances.